Gridiron Grinder! Hut hut hike!
All right, party people, it's Gridiron Grinder time. I'm Ryan. With me, as always, is my buddy James. Just a couple of dudes hanging out, talking about what's going on in the NFL each week. This is episode 144 of Gridiron Grinder. And for tonight, we're going to kick things off with Name That Stadium, like we always do. Then we're going to hit the news from this past week. After that, we are going to provide our favorite picks from the NFL draft in rounds 2 and later. And then last but not least, we'll close things off with our question of the week. And so, yeah, I guess with all that being said, how's it going tonight, James?
It's going good. How's it going with you?
Pretty good, man. Pretty good. Just jamming away, and we're the draft is done. We graded some rounds. Now we're going a little bit deeper, doing some favorite picks, and then the schedule was released yesterday, so I'm sure we'll be talking about that soon. And it's the off season, but we're staying busy, so that's good.
Yeah, it's definitely good. It's shit going on every week. It seems like NFL. It's amazing how the NFL just kind of like rules like all sports all year round.
Oh yeah, they were just talking about that on NFL Network, that it's just like dominating everything. And so sports that thought they had like a certain day or a certain time of the year, and now the NFL's just like creeping into everybody's space, and it's just like whatever, man. They're the big dog on the block, man.
Yeah. So I mean, it's amazing.
Well, hey, man, why don't you segue us over to do a little name that stadium action, man?
All right. So this is, as you can see, I'm kind of traveling around, going to different stadiums that host NFL games. We haven't had any takers in a while on it, but if you're the first person to guess right, we'll give you an extra special shout out. Probably bookmark it. You can brag to your friends. If you guess and you get it right after that, we'll probably give you a little shout out. And if you guess it wrong, well, you're just a dipshit, and we'll probably make fun of you. So, with all that said,
Yeah, just
last
don't
week,
be shy. It's not
yeah,
going to be that bad.
yeah, last week I was at Kansas City. I honestly, when I looked at Kansas City's draft for the first 3 rounds, which is what we were talking about last week, I thought they had like the perfect pick every round,
Okay,
or close to the perfect pick every round, and they were my team that I thought won the NFL draft overall in the first 3 rounds.
gotcha. You were digging it. Okay, so that was your inspiration tonight. I'm interested to find out your inspiration for this because I know where you're at, but I'm not going to spill those beans. So, yeah. Okay, well, hey, let's move it on over and do our recap of the past week. And so, James, as I mentioned, the NFL schedule was released yesterday. Man, they just like slow played the shit out of it all week, kind of
Hmm.
like leaking out the international games and then some of the primetime games, and then like each of the teams were doing their certain schedule release things, and it was I mean, hey, they're having fun with it, and they're like building the suspense, and they're doing everything. For me, it's like I didn't even care. I just wanted to see see the schedule and start thinking about it, dreaming about it, uh, you know, playing that kind of game. And so I know it came out. I looked at the Lions stuff. Obviously, we talked a little bit about that on Facebook, but I've not gotten too deep with it, and so I got some homework to do. But I figure, if it's not next week, it's probably going to be one of our next sessions. So,
Yeah, it definitely. I think it's coming close. Like we're got to do that and figure out do our way too early projections. I think that's coming up pretty soon and how we did it last year.
okay,
We might have. I think it was like the week after or 2 weeks after. It gave us some time to digest the schedule first.
gotcha, gotcha. Well, yeah, and you got your hands full with some personal stuff. So I know I think next week's the week where we're trying to be flexible on the day or whatever. So,
Yeah,
yeah, hey, we'll figure it out. You and I will talk later. We'll get it all nailed down, and we'll make it happen. But yeah, we do this every week. So, whoever's out there, check us out. We keep pumping these things out. And yeah, other news wise, James, the Washington Commanders, they've made it official. a couple weeks ago we talked about that tentative agreement that they had with the Harris Group. Looks like everything has been signed off on now,
Hmm.
and it just has to go to vote with the league. But yeah, the deal for 6.05 billion, it's moving forward.
Yeah, and I had read something earlier, and it might have been earlier in the week, might have been late last week, that the league's finance committee is they say there's some red flags with Harris
Okay,
that so I didn't really delve much into it, but that's what I was saying that or seeing was that the finance committee, let me see if I can find it, had some
sure.
red flags with Harris
Okay,
and
well,
purchase.
then yeah, I guess it's good to just kind of qualify that the news for today is that the basically the purchase agreement has been signed between the Harris Group and Dan Snyder and his camp, and so yeah, the league still has to do their part and approve it and whatnot, and it sounds like maybe it's not over just yet. Uh,
Yeah,
always something.
see if this can load really quick if they
Yeah,
say what they were
and hey,
saying.
yeah, while you're looking it up, I'll just hit a couple other pieces and keep us moving here. Shaq Mason, offensive lineman for the Houston Texans, he signed a 3-year extension worth $36 million. Good for him. Foster Moreau, former tight end from the Raiders, he was diagnosed with Hodgkin's lymphoma. Looked like he was going to take some time away from football. Looks like he's getting better. I don't think he's in the clear yet, but he signed a 3-year, $12 million deal with the Saints. And so that's good to see him moving in that direction. And, cancer's obviously a bad bitch, but we hope he gets through it okay. And he's got the connection with Derek Carr already from their time with the Raiders. And so I think that's a nice little signing for the Saints, man.
Hmm. So the concerns that the finance committee had with Harris buying the Commanders was the size of the group of limited partners is as part of the deal,
Okay.
and Harris's ability to be the principal owner of the team from a liquidity standpoint.
Oh, gotcha. Okay. So did they say how many people are going to be limited partners? And then I guess the question would be, maybe they're limited, but what kind of say are they going to have in running the team? Because
Yeah, let me see.
maybe that's part of it. Maybe they're like, hey, you got too many cooks in the kitchen here. You got to have like one guy or a couple guys or whatever.
Yeah, let me see if I can delve into the deal a little bit,
Okay.
because everything I've seen is with Harris.
Yeah, and in that same vein, I did just see Tom Brady is he's got something in the works to possibly become a minority partner of the Raiders. And so but it was like very clear that whatever deal he ends up getting, he'll have like no say in anything or no control over anything. It's just like purely like kind of like a silent investor type of position. And that's fine. You can't have like everybody and their mom trying to run the team. So,
Yeah, so apparently according to reports, there's at least 12 limited partners in the group.
mm, okay. Yeah, and I mean to get to 6 billion, I'm sure I'm sure it's going to take a few people to throw their cash into that pile. It's just a matter of, you know, who out of that group is like saying, "Hey, my voice has to be heard," and who out of that group is saying, "Yeah, I'm comfortable just sitting back and raking in the money."
Yeah, so some of the people involved in it is Harris, who apparently has a $5.8 billion net worth.
Okay.
Uh, Mitchell Rails, whoever the fuck that is like 5.5. David Blitzer, who owns Crystal Palace FC of the Premier League with Harris, and Magic Johnson.
Oh, nice.
So amongst others, but yeah. So
Gotcha.
Magic Johnson also owns the as part of the ownership group of the Dodgers, and I think there's somebody else that he's part of the ownership group on.
Okay. I like Magic Johnson, obviously,
Yeah.
so yeah, that's cool. Well, yeah, I guess, hey, we'll see what the league says about it and we'll see where it goes. But I got to believe they're motivated to let it go through so that they can cut
Yeah.
ties with
Get
Snyder and
rid of
move on,
Snyder.
Yeah. All right, so in other news, James, I saw safety Kareem Jackson has re-signed with the Denver Broncos on a one-year deal. I didn't get the financials on it, but it's going to be his 14th season in the NFL. That's pretty awesome for a defensive back. Pretty awesome for anybody, really, for that matter. But I like seeing that kind of longevity. And then in other news, Al Woods, the former Seahawks defensive lineman, he signed a deal with the Jets. And same thing, I saw he signed. The article I saw didn't have the like the contract breakdown, but this isn't a flashy signing anyhow. It's just there wasn't a ton in the news from this past week, and so I just threw it in here. Most of this past week was schedule release stuff or post draft kind of fluff pieces, and so I didn't get a ton of tangible news, but I'm sure there's probably a couple things hanging out there that you picked up on, man.
So there's one thing that happened in the last about 15 minutes
Oh,
that
okay.
I don't know if I don't remember you. Zadarius Smith was traded from Minnesota.
No, I didn't know that. Okay.
He was
Where's he
traded
off to?
he was traded to Cleveland. So Cleveland gets Zadarius Smith, um, Minnesota's 2025 sixth round pick and 2025 seventh round pick, and Minnesota will get the 2024 and 2025 fifth round picks from Cleveland.
Yeah, I mean, it's like I knew he was unhappy. Um, it's a good trade for Cleveland.
Hmm.
It's just can they keep him happy in Cleveland? And if they
Yeah,
can, they got a really good player for like peanuts, basically.
exactly. If they can keep him happy is the key there.
Yeah, yeah, because he's bounced around a few times now. So,
Yeah.
but hey, that's cool. He wanted a change of scenery. He got it. I like the fit too. I think he'll have a chance to have an impact in Cleveland.
Yeah, I think so too. I think this could be really good for Cleveland and Smith. And I mean, Minnesota got got rid of somebody that wasn't very
Committed.
happy there, committed.
Yeah, yeah, and
Uh,
I mean, hey, Miles Garrett maybe finally has a feasible running mate. So
mhm. Which is what he's been looking for.
yeah, yeah, the Clowney experiment didn't really work out, but I mean, come on, you and I knew before he got there that it wasn't going to work out. Hasn't worked anywhere with Clowney. So,
Yeah,
uh,
Clowney just kind of bounces around. And outside of that, I didn't really pick up on much. It's just a lot of it was schedule shit
yeah,
this week.
yeah, and I didn't have a lot of time to go through all the scheduling stuff, and so I
So with
figured we're
this,
going to have a whole session just on that, so I'd just save it for later.
yeah, I thought it was weird, and I texted you about this or talked to you, sent you a Facebook message, whatever it did, where like Jacksonville, and I verified it. It is. It's like week 4 and 5. It's October 1st and October 8th. They're playing a home game at Wembley, and then the following week they're playing a road game at Tottenham Hotspur Stadium.
Jeez, man, two in a row. Well, I mean, hey,
Yeah.
it actually might not be bad for them because maybe they just stay there,
Hmm.
and they can just practice there. They're already adjusted to the time change. It could actually work in their favor in that regard, man.
Yeah. And then I mean, there's other stuff like on the quick dive into the schedule I did, a quick looking at it that I picked up on. But I mean, we can save that for that episode.
Yeah, that's cool. That's cool. Okay. Well, yeah, I mean, hey, if you're good, man, we'll just kind of keep pushing forward here and we'll move on to our main event, so to speak. We'll do our favorite draft picks from rounds two and later. Are you ready for that, James?
Yeah, if my internet works and these my notes and my sources, work, and I'm good.
Yeah, you got to have your data, man. Yeah, and I mean, hey, you and I were talking before the show, but people watching, they didn't get to see any of that. But it's important to point out we did grade rounds 1 through 3 last week. And so some of the picks that we like in those 2 rounds, we might kind of like retread them tonight while we're talking. I tried to kind of save some of those, for another time because, like, in round 2, I talked a lot about Zach Charbonnet last week and how I like that pick. And so I didn't put him on my list for tonight just because we covered it pretty good. A lot of what I did tonight was value related. And so I highlighted the teams that took guys that were sliding down the board, and um, not all value because there were just some picks where, hey, if you reached, but it was a good pick, and maybe you didn't have to reach that much. Yeah, I mean, I highlighted those too, but I would say the vast majority of mine were value picks.
Hmm. Yeah, mine are kind of a lot of them are big value picks when you boil down to it. Is like players that I thought would go way earlier that ended up sticking around to like
Yeah.
first rounders. I thought would be PL players I thought would go in the first round, went in the like third, fourth round, maybe not fourth, but I have to retract that one and wait to see if I find one that for that. But I know there are players in the third round that I thought were going to go in the first round.
Oh yeah, and one of the things I noticed as I was going through the exercise is that we talked last week about how not the tight end, sorry, the defensive tackle pool, it got shallow very fast. Teams were drafting those guys and reaching for those guys, and it thinned out like super fast in the draft. I noticed with cornerback and safety, it was the exact opposite. So, like, you got through the first couple rounds where I would say it was like mostly on track, where, some teams were reaching a little bit, and then some teams were getting value a little bit. And then it's like once you got into like the late third, fourth round and on, it like almost went stale on cornerbacks where, or maybe not stale's not the right word, but not nearly as many of them that were rated that high came off the board like the best available was predicting. And so I saw a lot of guys in the later rounds, like the sixth, seventh round, that had like a best available rating of like 120 or 140, even though they were getting picked at like 220. And so I think teams found a lot of value in the secondary late in the draft because of that.
Hmm. Yeah, I agree there, and it like we talked about it on draft night, and we talked about it last week. Like it was crazy. Like it, for a while, like you and I would every year we try. Oh, okay, so they're probably going here, and it was just like we were just like way off on like where
Yeah.
where they were going. Like weren't even in the right. Weren't even in the right stadium on who they were picking. We weren't even in the right country.
Oh yeah, yeah. I will say that for the first round, even for a lot of the second round, teams stayed very close to whoever was near the top of the best available list, and so that was good. But they were definitely prioritizing some of their positions of need differently, or they just had guys rated that much higher on the board at other positions, and so uh, you know we don't really know because we're not in the war room, but it's always exciting. That's like the fun part about it. Is like you can do all the mock drafts in the world, and it means nothing once the clock actually starts ticking. So,
Yeah,
all right,
completely.
man. So yeah, for tonight, I thought we'd start with round 2, and we could each just call out a couple guys that we liked and why or whatever, or maybe a little bit out of their scouting reports, and just talk about some of our favorite picks. And so, if you want, I'll kick it off, and then you can go, and we'll just kind of go back and forth until we're ready to go to the third round. Sound good?
All right, sounds good.
All right, so the first pick I had for the second round that I liked was literally the first pick of the second round. Oh, that was on your list?
Yeah.
Okay, you take that. and then I'll go with a different guy because I think I got more people on my list.
All right. So Joey Porter Jr. I kid you not. I thought it was like somewhere in the range of 15 to 18. Going to go 15 to 18, and he went 32, which technically is in the second round.
Yep.
Technically, so it's a first rounder going in the second round, while it was the 32nd pick at the draft, which technically is a first round pick, which is the
In a
confusing
normal
side.
year, but yeah, Miami lost their pick, and yeah.
Right. But to get a player as, first of all, as tough as Porter is, that's going to step in day one and be the number one cornerback on that team as a second round pick is it's an amazing job.
Yeah, and I love the Pittsburgh connection with his dad
Mm-hmm.
having played linebacker there. Yeah, ESPN had him ranked at 23, and so like on the surface you almost say, oh, 23 to 32, that's not that big of a slide, but when you're in the first round, a 9 spot slide is actually huge. It's if you're in like the fifth round and you got like a 9 point slide, that's nothing. Like you see 100 point slides by the fifth round, but it was a big thing in the draft, and it's not like some of these guys, like we talked about. What was the one guy from Iowa, Lucas Van Ness? He like
Yeah.
shot up the board in the weeks before the draft, and if you go back a little ways, he was like not even on the radar for a lot of people. Joey Porter Jr. was the opposite. He was regarded as a first round pick for as long as I can remember, and
Mhm.
so for him to go from 23 to 32, pretty big deal. But I like the landing spot. It's family ties, man.
That's another good point. There is the family ties, and every rumor I saw about him, the only team I ever saw connected to him was the Pittsburgh Steelers. So it's great that they got their guy.
Yeah, definitely. Yeah, for sure. All right, so I'll take this next one, and if it's another name on your list, James, I'll give it to you because I still got plenty more to go through. I liked the Will Levis pick. Okay, I'm 0 for 2. I'm 0 for 2. Go. You
That was
take it. You take
my
it again,
next.
man.
So with Will Levis, the reason I like the Levis pick is, well, first of all, I thought he was going to go in the first round. I thought
Yep.
thought because people always reach for a quarterback
Yeah.
and draft him in the first round, draft him in the top 10. Will Levis was always Tennessee's guy, and there was all sorts of rumors that they were going to trade up to get ahead of Indianapolis, which is
Yep.
what he was trying to do, to pick Levis. They happened to have Skoronski fall to them at number 11, so they couldn't pass on Skoronski, but then were able to get their guy because they were going to pick Levis at 11
Yeah.
if Skoronski wasn't there. They were able to come back in the second round and get the guy that they really wanted, when Levis, to be the quarterback. I don't like it for how he's I just don't like the fact that he puts gobs of mayo in his coffee. That disgusts me.
Yeah, he does some weird shit. I
And
gotcha.
he's a little weird, but I don't know how well 100% how well his skills transfer to the NFL. But he is in a clear run first offense right now, so he'll
Yeah.
have that time to develop.
Yeah, and I don't understand why he slid down the board other than uh, you know, apparently Tennessee was the only team that really had that big of a need for quarterback, and so that's why he fell because he got great reviews throwing at the combine. And normally, when you see a quarterback slide like this, it's because you hear something about him. And really,
Hmm.
the only knock that I've heard on him is that he just doesn't put any touch on the ball. And he gets comparisons to Stafford, where he just fucking rifles everything in there. And that's okay. But you know what? I've never seen a quarterback fall because of that. And so it was a little weird to see it, but I like that Tennessee got him in the second round. I thought it was a steal for them, and it's good because they still have Tannehill, which gives them time to let Levis develop and maybe learn how to put some touch on the ball and get up to speed for the NFL game. And then even there, as long as they still got Derrick Henry and they're pounding the rock, if and when he does hit the field, it should be a fairly easy transition because they're not going to ask him to do everything for them. They have another priority. So, all right. Well, hey, I'm 0 for 2. Instead of striking out, man, who's your next guy that you like in round two? Because it might be my next guy too. So,
So the next guy I like in round two is now this player I honestly thought was a first round pick. I thought he was a top 20 pick.
okay.
He ended up going number 45 to the
Okay.
Lions.
All right.
And that was Brian Branch, safety from that wherever the fuck he was from.
Alabama.
Yeah. I mean, this is one of two good picks the Lions had in the draft. One of two value picks they had in the draft.
Yeah.
But it's also the fact that he was clearly a first round talent that went middle of the second round. So that's going to save him money. That's going to shore up that secondary a lot, and they're not going to have the first round pressure that that the Lions have had on their secondary by waiting and taking them in the second round.
Yeah, and yeah, when you look at what they did in free agency this year, they brought in a lot of guys on 1-year contracts. And so, I know Sutton, he got the 3-year deal, but everybody else is on a 1-year deal. And so it's nice seeing Branch get drafted, and it's nice seeing that he has some of that versatility where he can play cornerback or safety. He's like really meant to be in that nickel position, whichever way you're going to use him. But it's like, he can be a cornerstone for that secondary for years to come, which is what we need because we kind of just got like a handful of mercenaries right now that might not be around after next year.
Yeah, which is the mercenary point is a good point that I didn't include in my notes, but yeah. So we'll go to you and see if you can go 3 for 3 for my next one.
All right, so my next one was actually picked before Branch. It was, and you talked about this guy last week, which is where I had the hesitation, but it was Michael Mayer, the tight end from Notre Dame.
That was my 4th pick.
Okay, and so and I tried doing them in order of where they were picked, but I know you talked about him and you liked that pick by the Raiders. I liked it as well. He was ranked 19 on ESPN. He got picked at 35. The only knock I've heard on this guy is that he ran a lot slower than teams wanted to see, but his production at Notre Dame was rock solid, man, especially on third downs and big plays. He was very reliable, very effective. And then when you look at the Raiders trading Darren Waller to the Giants, they had a big need there to fill that tight end spot. And I mean, I kind of look at this guy as like, okay, maybe if the speed's a concern, I don't know, man. I still think he could be like a Kyle Rudolph type where, maybe he's never going to lead the league in reception yards for a tight end, but he's going to do everything they need effectively for a long time.
Yeah. Well, the reason why I don't think the speed is an issue is because of the fact that he's a true tight end. He's not like Kelsey or Kittle or all these tight ends that just catch balls.
I gotcha.
He's a true tight end to where he can stay in and block no problem. He's successful. He can run routes and be productive as a tight end on top of that, which is what the Raiders really need. The Raiders are going to probably be going with that run first offense and just running the wheels off Josh Jacobs. And they're going to need a tight end that can block, that can chip and then sneak out into like the flats. And really the tight ends they have on their roster right now, Austin Hooper, OJ Howard, they're not consistent. And Hooper, I don't even think Hooper knows how to block. But
he's definitely a receiving kind of tight end. And then Howard, he's sort of in that same vein, but he keeps getting hurt and just hasn't really played throughout his career. So, who the heck knows what those guys are really going to offer? Meyer ends up being for sure, like on paper, the best looking of the bunch.
Right. And then when you look at it, when Buffalo jumped ahead of Dallas, I was at like 24, 25, 25.
Yeah.
Buffalo jumped ahead of Dallas to get Kincaid. I swear I thought Dallas was going to pick
Yep.
Meyer and
Oh yeah.
didn't. And so, I mean, that's what, like, he went 35. So that, I mean, right there, that's what, at least 9 spots. I think he was probably overall top 20. So, I mean, you're looking at 15 slot value with picking him at 35.
I agree. I agree. Yeah, a handful of tight ends got picked before him, which was kind of shocking. All right, so you want me to take another swing, or you want to go next, bud?
You can take another swing.
All right, so the next guy I had on my list was defensive tackle Keanu Benton from Wisconsin. He was drafted 49 overall by the Pittsburgh Steelers, ranked 35 by ESPN, and I liked this pick for a number of reasons. But when you look at what Pittsburgh did throughout the draft, they nailed it like very consistently round after round after round in terms of getting great value out of all their picks. You didn't see them reach, and that's important, I think, in the draft. But with Keanu Benton in particular, um, you look at how that defensive tackle group dried up, and a lot of other teams reached big time. Even like what the Lions did, where they drafted that one guy and they traded a bunch of picks to move up and get him. It almost seemed like teams were getting desperate, and Pittsburgh somehow stayed ahead of that. And not only did they stay ahead of it, they got value out of their pick. And so I was just really happy with it. And it fills a big need for them.
So you actually picked somebody I didn't have on my list.
Hey, good stuff. Now we're getting to that kind of point here where we can go back and forth.
Let's see, who would I have had next? 'Cause I did it in a funky order. I kind of ranked the picks that I liked. Like I did
Sure.
round by round, and then I ranked them. Like,
I got you. I got you. Yeah, that's one way of doing it. Yeah. I only got one more for round two, by the way.
yeah, I think looking I only have one more for round two as well, and that's guard Osiris Torrance
Oh yeah, we're on the same page with him.
uh, to Buffalo. I mean, first of all, it fit a need. He was graded out as a second round pick, but they got a lot of value getting him 12 to 15 slots after his grade.
Yeah, from 42 is where he was ranked. They got him
Yeah,
at 59. That's still very significant for that early in the draft.
yeah, and he was probably so. I count Skoronski as a guard,
Hmm.
even though he says tackle. I think Skoronski is better fit as a guard. So I say Torrance was the second best guard in the draft, and I think this will help them kind of get their running game going
Yeah,
a little
find some
bit,
balance.
find some balance in that offense, which is what they need. And he'll probably start at guard for them week one, which
Yeah.
is anytime you get that out of a second round pick, that yeah, you're doing a good job.
Oh yeah, yeah. And I mean, the only thing I can add is just that in his scouting report, it said that he was one of the most dominant interior linemen in the country.
Mm.
And, when you see somebody get that in their report, it's just like, come on, how could you not take this guy? So, so I like it. I want a guy with a nasty demeanor that's just going to dominate like he did. And, that's exactly what you want out of a guard, man.
Exactly.
All right, let's go on to round three. I got a handful of them for the third round. Um, I mean, listen, you know, I'm sure we both have Hendon Hooker on the list.
We both
Why
have
don't
him.
we just start there and you give me your take on that, man?
All right. So Hendon Hooker is probably prior to his injury, probably would have been the number one overall pick in the draft.
You think so? Holy
I
shit.
think so.
Sure.
Watching him in college, he was head and shoulders above C.J. Stroud and Bryce Young. Head and shoulders above them. I mean, he beat Bryce Young head to head. He's probably the most talented quarterback in the draft, but coming off the injury, there's question marks. Also, with his age, there's question marks. But I think going to the Lions is a good fit for him because we have this year where we can let Goff play because Goff is coming off a good season, and let kind of redshirt Hendon Hooker a little bit, let him get healthy and learn the system, learn the ways of the NFL, and then come next year or the year after, step in and be the franchise quarterback for Lions. And anytime you can get a franchise quarterback, let's say third round or later, you're doing good. And with Hendon Hooker, the only reason why he fell so far is because of his injury and his age, and they're unsure how he's going to come back. But from everything I'm reading, he's going to be ready week 1.
Yeah, and I think Dan Campbell made some comments about this, like you said, basically being a redshirt year for him. And I know some fans are unhappy about that, but I'm totally fine with it. I don't want to rush the guy back, and I definitely don't want to put unnecessary pressure on Goff just yet because there's no reason for it. You can take your time with Hooker. Quarterbacks have an extremely long shelf life in the NFL compared to other positions. So I'm not worried about the age. I'm not worried about slow playing it. But this guy, man, I like what you said about beating Bryce Young. I mean, he had big time production in a big time conference. And some people that I read were saying, hey, it's hard to really evaluate him because of the system he was playing in. But the accuracy was great. I don't know, man. The tape looks so good on him, man. It looks so freaking good. So, and
Yeah.
for what it's worth, ESPN had him ranked at 33. We got him at 68. And so, the 33, that probably baked in some of the injury stuff and the age stuff. And otherwise, I'm sure he probably would have had a first round grade.
Yeah. So like the start of like his scouting report that I read was Hooker has NFL starting caliber movement ability and arm talent. But he needed a place to get healthy.
Okay.
From his November torn ACL tear.
Okay, we'll give it to him. All right, so up next, I'd like to go to his Tennessee teammate, wide receiver Jalen Hyatt. I got to believe he's on your list as well here, James.
Yes.
So Jalen Hyatt, he was drafted at 73 by the Giants, ranked at 49 by ESPN. We talked a lot about him in the last couple weeks. He was regarded as an explosive wide receiver. As the draft got closer, he was climbing a lot of boards, and more tape was coming out, looked amazing, and somehow he ended up sliding once the draft started. A lot of guys went before him, and I know that this was one of these weird wide receiver classes where none of these guys were really viewed as a wide receiver 1 out of the gate, and so you were kind of trying to find the right complement to what you already had on your team or for what you might be doing in the future. But still, I was shocked to see him slide and really happy that the Giants got him. They had a big need there, and they're going to reap the benefits of getting this guy, man.
So I think we talked about this when we did our first round recap. I thought Jalen Hyatt was going to be the pick for the Giants in the first round. I had him as first round talent at wide receiver. He can spread the field. He can be that target, deep ball target for Danny Dimes, and really gives that offense some versatility, which is kind of like because Buffalo and Kansas City, that's where the offense coordinator, head coach are from, head coach and offensive coordinator respectively. They run that offense where they have like a smaller speed receiver that has the stretchability, which is what they're getting in Hyatt. And since I had him, what did the Giants pick? Like 24 26, 24, somewhere in there.
Something like that, yeah.
So getting him in the third round, I mean, to me, that's because I thought they were going to pick him in the first round. Right there,
Yeah.
that's 50 pick value on him.
Yeah, it was another one of these steals, like how could you not take the guy there? Oh,
Hmm.
and I did want to mention that too with the wide receivers is that there was a nice run early on, and they had a similar kind of fade as the draft went on, like the secondary guys did, like the cornerbacks and the safeties did. So I noticed that once you got to like the sixth, seventh round, you saw a lot of guys with like 100-ish ranking on them getting drafted in like the early 200s or somewhere
Yeah.
in that regard. And so potentially some good value for teams there. And some of that's just that you get all these wide receivers and maybe you don't need them, and so they fall, and that's just the name of the game, man.
Hmm.
Okay, who do you have next on your list there, James?
Next on my list, he went 93rd overall to Pittsburgh. Another
Yeah,
great steal pick by Pittsburgh
yeah,
was Darnell Washington. I thought Darnell Washington. I thought he would go in the second round. That's where I had him
I
slated. He
know,
was
I
he was
know.
probably the third. You could argue third or fourth best tight end in the draft. He has the reason why he dropped is because he had knee injuries in college. But I mean, he was
Yeah, he played behind like a freaking all-world tight end at Georgia too, which kind of
yeah,
overshadowed him. But that's not
and
his fault.
right. And so Pittsburgh has Fryermuth, but the amazing thing is Washington is 6'7", 270 pounds,
Yeah,
and he ran a 4.640 at the draft or at the
yeah.
combine.
Yeah, everything that I heard is that when you look at this tight end class, it's regarded as one of the best ones we've had in a long time. And even though the production wasn't necessarily there on paper for Washington, a lot of what I heard is that people think he has the highest ceiling of
Mhm.
this entire group. And so he landed in a perfect spot where he's going to go in, be behind Pat Fryermuth, and have some time to develop. And then they'll be able to unleash him when he's ready, man. And that could be like a pretty sick two tight end set with those two guys out there, man.
Yeah, exactly.
Okay, so the next guy I had, James, and I know I mentioned his name a few times last week, but it was inside linebacker Trenton Simpson out of Clemson. And so he got picked by Baltimore at 86 overall. He had a 54 rank on ESPN. The dude's very athletic, capable of matching up with running backs and tight ends, a lot of range. But the one thing I like a lot about him is that in the scouting report, he got comparisons to Micah Parsons in
Mhm.
terms of his ability to rush the passer. And Baltimore is phenomenal at using their linebackers in a lot of creative ways. And so I just think that the fit there is going to be perfect for him.
I did not have him on my list.
That's okay. That's okay. That's my last guy for the third round, man. Who else do you have?
My last guy for the third round was a 28 pick value for me, and that was Hyatt's. Or not. Well, never mind. It was it was a 33 pick value for me. I went to the wrong one, and that was Hyatt's teammate at Tennessee, Cedric Tillman, going to Cleveland.
Okay.
Um, he's a possession receiver and dominant on the slant routes. He will excel. He excelled basically in the slot, which is what Cleveland's going to use him for, alongside Mari Cooper and Elijah Moore. So it's kind of a perfect fit, perfect value for Cleveland. I really like what Cleveland did in a lot of respects at certain points of the draft. Not overall in the draft because they had some hiccups, but drafting him was almost a no-brainer when you're picking at 74 and he's probably I'll call him a top 45 talent in
Sure.
the draft.
Yeah, and I don't have a whole lot to say on Tillman except that he has really good size, 6'3", 213 pounds. And in this year's draft class, there were very few guys that were even over that 6 foot mark. We had a lot of smaller,
Hmm.
lighter receivers in this year's class. And so his size is good. And I didn't like the pick at first, but I did like the way that you explained it and how, he's really going in to be their three by design. And that was my whole thing, was just that I thought, Cleveland had other needs, and, they traded for Elijah Moore. They already had what's his face? Why did they need to go at wide receiver again? But Amari Cooper, sorry, I had a moment there. But yeah, good fit. And then, yeah, just looking at the Browns in general, I thought they made some really good offensive lineman picks as you go
Hmm.
through the draft, which is important to keep that trench stacked and open up those run lanes for Nick Chubb. But yeah, I mean, hey, they went skill position here, and that's important too, because Watson has to be effective, or I got to believe a lot of people are going to be getting fired in Cleveland at some point. So, uh,
Yeah,
any,
I think.
eh, yeah, yeah. Anybody else for the third round, man?
I think that was my last one I had in the third round.
Okay. All right, so going on to the fourth round. In this round, I had a lot of guys. I liked so many picks in the fourth round, and so why don't you kick us off here, and then if I already got the guy, that way I'm not stealing too much of your thunder.
All right. So my first and probably what I think is what I think is almost, if not the best value pick of the draft.
Okay.
And that's pick number 133, Tyler Scott, wide receiver, going to the Chicago Bears. I mean, he's a top 60 talent in the draft, going 70 plus spots after where his talent rated out as. He's speedy and has vertical ability, and he has a slightly different skill set than the current receivers they have in Chicago. But on top of that, he can be the returner, kind of the new Devin Hester, shall we
Okay.
say, in Chicago, and getting the value they did with him,
Yeah.
70. I have it at 76, a 76 pick value, because I had him at 57 and he was picked at 133. I think it's a good job by Chicago to get that. I mean, yeah, granted they had to have other teams pass on him, but I think
Yep.
he fits well into that offense.
Gotcha. Gotcha. Yeah. I can't argue with that. I mean, the scouting report, when it says that he's one of the most talented receivers in the class, yeah, obviously getting him at this stage of the draft, I mean, that just bodes well. So,
Yeah, and I
uh,
think there's one pick in much later rounds that I have as bigger value. There might be two.
okay. Okay, so yeah, I guess I'll start with my massive list here. The first one I had was cornerback Keely Ringo out of Georgia. And we talked about him the last couple weeks. I know I brought his name up a lot because he was one of the guys that slid. Philly capitalized on that. They got him at 105 overall. He was ranked at 50 by ESPN, so tremendous value. He's a tall press man cornerback, and Philly doesn't need a ton of help in that secondary, but they did lose Chauncey Gardner Johnson, and it doesn't hurt to bring in another guy just to keep it totally stacked. And so you got Slay, you got what's his face, their other cornerback. It basically just keeps that cupboard full, and so I liked the pick there. They don't need him to be a game changer tomorrow. They just need him to contribute and help them try and make another Super Bowl run.
Hmm.
All right, who you got next, man?
This one's gonna piss you off. This
Okay.
one's gonna absolutely, completely piss you the fuck off. So, who did the Lions draft at? Or no, 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 no. So, never mind. I had it mixed up.
Okay, okay. So I'm not going to be pissed.
Oh, you'll still be annoyed because it's another Chicago pick.
Oh yeah, I think I know where you're going. I like that pick actually.
Rashawn Johnson,
Yeah.
running back from Texas. He running the ball wise, he was the better running back at Texas. Talent wise, what's his face? Bijan
Bijan. Yeah.
was the best. But so I had him as a top, probably like top 85, and top 85 overall. He went at 115, so it's like a 30 point value for the pick. But everything I'm reading about him, they're saying that Rashawn Johnson could be this year's Damian Pierce.
Okay. Yeah,
Um,
that'd be great. Yeah.
actual, actual sources from the Bears are telling people that he is probably going to be their starting running back come day one.
I mean, I could see it because Khalil Herbert was a late round pick, and he ended up beating Montgomery for the job, basically. But he's got cracks in his game.
Mm-hmm.
Uh, I'm actually glad you called this one out because this one was on my list. He was ranked 84 by ESPN, taken 115 by Chicago. Um, him playing second fiddle to Bijan Robinson is in ways similar to Miles Sanders playing second fiddle to Saquon Barkley at Penn State. And both of those guys have had success at the NFL level. I think when you're talking about getting a running back this late in the draft, Roshan Johnson could be amazing. He's 6 foot 219, great size, uh, really efficient between the tackles, really good power. And you know me, I love power runners, and so
Mm-hmm.
I like this pick a lot, man. And yeah, I mean, hey, it sucks he's going to Chicago, but I love football. I like seeing guys do good, so I'll be more behind him than the team, if that makes sense.
Yeah, I only had one more in the fourth round,
Okay,
and this one isn't a value pick.
sure,
In fact, he was probably picked 60 spots a, ahead of his ranking, so it's a little bit of a
that's
reach.
fine. Yeah,
Um, he went 135 overall. Aiden O'Connell, quarterback to the Raiders. So everything I'm reading about this guy is he has similar timing and touch as Brock Purdy. He
okay.
can he can down the road. Everybody believes that he can end up being the QB1 in Vegas. It also, with the fact that Jimmy Garoppolo gets hurt
Hurt
year
all the
in and
time.
year out,
Yeah.
hurt all the time. Exactly. There's some you need a decent backup quarterback if Garoppolo is going to be your starter. And I think that's what they got in Aiden O'Connell is they got a pretty good backup that could be that QB1 of the future.
Yeah, and I don't know a ton about him, but I know that he did have some success at Purdue, and he's one of these guys that gets the ball out of his hands really fast,
Mm-hmm.
which lines up well with what McDaniels likes to do, which I thought was going to be good for Derek Carr because he kind of fit that mold a little bit too, and then it turned out that really wasn't the case with him, at least not in that offense. And so,
Yeah.
um, yeah, maybe Jimmy G, and then at some point he passes off the torch to this guy. I think that's not a shabby move, man. All right, so let me give you my couple that I got left on my list. I like that Northwestern defensive end at Atama at Abaraway, however you say his name. I'll just call him AA. The dude was drafted 110 overall by Indy. He had a 51 ranking by ESPN, but his size and physicality is like prototypical for a defensive end in the NFL. Really good power and solid as a run defender, which means you're getting sort of like the complete package for a traditional like 4-3 defensive end. And so I like the guy. I thought he played really well at Northwestern, which Northwestern had a really good year this past year. And so I think Indy got a good pick there. I like that guy. I was surprised he slid as far as he did in the draft, like a lot of these guys. The next one I had was Dawan Jones, the offensive tackle from Ohio State. He went to Cleveland at 111, and so we talked briefly about them making their offensive line picks. This guy is just freaking massive, man. 6'8", 374 pounds. And despite that size, they say he's got great short area burst as a run blocker. And so, that's one of the ones where I like, hey, keep those lanes open for Chubb to work his magic, because that's really the priority for that offense is Nick Chubb. And then I had a couple more. I liked the offensive guard, City So out of Eastern Michigan. And this one wasn't about value. It's that I liked that he was a 4-year starter. He's played both guard and tackle, likely to be a guard in the NFL. And he's a bit more of a run blocker right now, but he ended up going to the Patriots at 117, which is, basically they're a run first team now ever since Tom Brady's been gone. And so I thought it was just a really good landing spot for him. And he has maybe some potential to get on the field sooner than later because of that. And then I had two more. I know like I said, my fourth round, the list was long here. This one was interesting, James, but quarterback Jake Haener from Fresno State going to the Saints at 127. And I know he had a 91, it was his ranking on ESPN. I don't know how I feel about his ranking because I've heard like a lot of varying opinions. Some people like him, some people really don't like him. I know they call out his size a lot because he's only 6 feet, 207 pounds. But I just thought it was interesting that he ended up in New Orleans with Derek Carr, both these guys having played at Fresno State. And when I read his report, I like it. He won the Senior Bowl, great anticipatory accuracy, and excellent touch. I think that the Saints got the ideal developmental backup quarterback to pair with Derek Carr. And I don't know if this guy will ever become a starter in the NFL, but I like the path that he's on and the potential for him to maybe get there one day. I don't know if it'll happen. I'm just saying. My last guy, this pick I liked a lot. Like if I prioritized him like you did, I probably would have put this one towards the top for this round, which was outside linebacker Nick Herbig out of Wisconsin. He went to Pittsburgh, another one of these freaking value plays by Pittsburgh. They got him at 132. He was ranked 97 by ESPN. And a lot of people said he fell because he's undersized for that outside linebacker position. But the dude has an explosive first step, great hand fighter, good range, excellent motor. When I think of Pittsburgh linebackers, this guy like fits right in with what I think of. And so another, I mean, I don't know, dude. Like it's hard for me to not say Pittsburgh won the draft because just like every pick was like perfect value, perfect fit. But there were a lot of teams that had really good drafts, and so I'm not like crowning them that way. I'm just, I'm saying that in my book they contended for one of the best drafts. That's all I got for four, man. How about you give me your first guy for round five?
All right, so round five, as I'm like computing like the value on it, I'm finding a lot more value in round five that I didn't catch off it when I. So
Sure. Yeah.
number one, and this is another great value pick. This is almost 100 pick value,
Okay.
almost 100 pick value. It probably ranked top 70 when at 160 to Jacksonville, safety Antonio Johnson.
Oh yeah.
I mean, Jaguars they have solid options, but Johnson's potential is way above what they already have. And to get nearly he's a fifth rounder that has a chance to start.
Yep.
Which is crazy. But also to get somebody that's valued as that third round, a third round value in the fifth round is great. Similarly, sticking in the secondary, going back to Chicago, at 165, you had nearly 90 pick value with Terrell Smith, cornerback. First of all, these two teams at 160 and 165 got top 90 talent, got third round talent in the fifth round. So
Yeah,
what I
Chicago plucked a couple of cornerbacks in the draft, by the way, that looked sneaky good. But yeah, keep
right,
going.
especially since though after this year, Jalen Johnson and Chicago set to be a free agent, and this could be his replacement.
Hmm.
I mean, yeah, he has to be developed a little bit, but I mean, just the value and the fit with what's coming up and the foresight
Yeah.
to get the guy a year early to have him start developing, I think is I just like that pick.
Yeah, no, I liked it, and he was on my list, James, which is nice. We had some overlap there. He played multiple positions in the secondary, and I like the scouting report talking about his long arms and how he's very physical within that first 5 yards, which is important in the NFL. That's kind
Hmm.
of how you can control the receiver's timing and the routes and things like that. It says he can run with almost anyone, gets off blocks well, and he's developed into a reliable tackler. And so it's like when you look at how he's shown that progression, I like what you're saying. There's a path there for him to lock down a starter spot and possibly succeed Jalen Johnson there, and who knows? But this late in the draft, well worth the upside.
Yeah, and then sticking in the secondary, the fifth round was the secondary round for me.
Sure.
Like you had Christopher Smith, safety, picked by the Raiders. Um, he's probably a top 100 rating going at 170. Again, good value. Um, they have they have to have safeties to compete in the division with Patrick Mahomes, Justin Herbert, and Russell Wilson. If he ever gets back to form,
Yeah.
I mean this Christopher Smith. He's instinctive and probably a third round pick in the fifth round. The reason probably why he fell is he didn't run well at the combine.
Sure.
Um, and I mean he stuck out on film in the Georgia secondary, which was one of the best defenses again this past year.
I know. Yeah. All right. Well, let me give you a couple names I had. One of them, this was not a value pick, but it was just similar to the Jake Hayner pick where I liked the fit. Was quarterback Dorian Thompson Robinson out of UCLA. And so he's going to go into Cleveland and be the QB2 behind Deshaun Watson. I like the pick because when you watch him play, he has a similar style of play to Watson. And I think that continuity is important in an offense. Sometimes a team, like, man, it's like you'll see, like, let's go back, like, Baltimore Joe Flacco era. And I'm not talking like at the end when they brought in Lamar, but like earlier on and they had Tyrod Taylor, and it was like, you got a guy that's like a statue in the pocket, and then his backup is like a very mobile quarterback. And it's like, you know, certain teams can make that combination work. But a lot of times you want to have similar quarterbacks at 1 and 2 to maintain that continuity with the offense in the playbook. And Cleveland's doing that by bringing in this guy. He was streaky as a passer at best, but he has a lot of the physical attributes and the high ceiling to potentially develop into something more. And so, not necessarily a value pick. I just thought it was a good fit pick. And then the next pick I had, James, was the center out of Michigan. Another one of these crazy names. Olasuagun, Olawatami. I don't even know how to say it. Instead of AA for my Northwestern guy, you got OO here for Michigan. Also not a value pick. This one goes the other way, actually. He was picked at 154 by Seattle, had a 173 ranking on ESPN, but I think Seattle still got a good guy because he was a 4-year starter at Michigan. And that right there should just speak for itself. If you can come out and start all 4 years at a school like U of M, you're freaking pretty darn good. And so, but, digging into the scouting report, powerful finisher, takes solid angles, and then, just looking at what Seattle's doing. They really revamped that offensive line last year, and now they're continuing to carry that forward. Uh, and it's unfortunate the Russell Wilson era, they had a really weak offensive line for a lot of the time he was there. Last year, probably the best offensive line I've seen Seattle have in years, and it's going to get better, which I love it, dude. I freaking love it. All right, who else you got for fourth round or fifth round? I got one more if you want me to go.
You go with yours. I'm curious if it's the same as me.
Okay. So this one I went running back, Chase Brown out of Illinois. And so
Nope.
I see you turn in the head. So this was not a value pick. This was if you look at it, he went 163 overall to Cincinnati. He was ranked 156 by ESPN. So like right in that range when you get to this part of the draft. I mean, 7 spots. I wouldn't say that that's like significant value, but I liked him because he is a complete back, like rounded, meaning that he's got good patience, he's got good foot speed, he catches the ball well. He's one of those guys that can do whatever you need him to do from the backfield. And Cincinnati, they let Samaje Perine leave in free agency this year, which opened up the door for that running back 2 spot. We both know Joe Mixon has had his injury issues, concussion issues. Last year was pretty solid, but when you go beyond last year, I think it was prudent for them to bring in a guy like this that can come in and fill that void if he's needed. I don't know that he's workhorse material, but I think he's a good complement to Joe Mixon in case they need him.
All right. The last one I had on my list was Henry 2020.
All right.
Inside linebacker from Alabama. First of all, there's no way in hell this guy should have been a fifth round pick.
Mm-hmm.
You're talking third rounder, second rounder in some mock drafts.
Yeah.
He filled a need. Well, what didn't the Texans need? First of all, what did the Texans need? He's everything I'm reading. He's an instinctive linebacker. He's speedy and he has range. And with his instincts, he's quick to act on them. So I mean, it's perfect fit for a need. Also, perfect value at probably second rounds. Say he was a second rounder, so that's
3 rounds.
32. You get 3 rounds value. If he was third round, you get 2 rounds value on him. And also, he'll fit perfectly into the DeMeco Ryan scheme.
Yeah, I was surprised that he slid as well, and I kind of thought about it after the fact that like a lot of the Alabama linebackers at the NFL level, it seems like they don't really make it for one reason or another. But it's like you can't paint with a broad stroke like that. You got to look at all of these guys individually. And I think he's going to have some success. And they need a leader in the middle of that defense. I mean, I know Will Anderson's he's going to be their guy. Okay, they traded up, drafted him early to be the guy, but you now have a smart like field general at middle linebacker as well, which is good. All right, was that it for round 5?
That was my last one for round 5.
Okay. Well, here, let me kick us off with round 6. And this one, I'd be shocked if you have him on your list. I put him on here, but I'm not really sure what is going to happen with him at the NFL level. But defensive end Carl Brooks out of Bowling Green. And so he's listed as a defensive end, James. He went 179 to Green Bay, ranked at 186 by ESPN. The thing that I liked about this guy, and really just perplexed about this guy, is that he was like the be-all, end-all at Bowling Green on defense. He lined up at outside linebacker, he played defensive end, and he played defensive tackle. They say he's got explosive power, reads the quarterback well, gets his hands up in the passing lanes. But the thing that's crazy about this is that the dude is 6'3", 303 pounds, which leads me to believe he's going to be an interior defensive lineman at the next level. Uh, Green Bay, because of their defense, maybe he could play defensive end. I know they like those big guys like the Rashawn Gary types at defensive end. Um, but it's the part about him lining up at linebacker that makes me wonder. Maybe he was just a great small school guy with great size and power, but where does it fit in the NFL? I don't know.
He was on my list.
Oh, all right. Well, hey. Uh, but I like to
I,
pick either way. Yeah.
I like the pick. I think you're right. It doesn't really fit a need, but the value's there with him. I think I had him a little rated a little higher at defensive tackle, not defensive end,
Yeah.
which is why it took me a minute to find him on my list because I had him listed as defense tackle because I think that's what he'll play there. And he's a speedy defensive tackle, but I just think that's his true fit.
Yeah, he just had such a unique scouting report when you look at his size in the positions he's played and just the whole package was, for me, it's like when you get this late in the draft and you see something unique like that, it's like, okay, let's just explore it and see what happens because you get him out on the field and maybe he ends up gravitating into one of those spots and ends up being great. I doubt it's linebacker. I mean, I don't think there's ever been a 300-pound linebacker in the NFL, uh, but it's just interesting. Just interesting.
So I had in the sixth round, I had a lot of picks that were very close to 100 pick value.
Yeah, yeah. See, this is especially in the secondary. That's where a lot of them started popping up. But yeah, go ahead and give me one that you liked, man.
So the
And I'll
first,
say not all. I'll say some of them I wasn't a huge fan of because I realized that like the pool was just sort of overflowing, but hard to not appreciate the value.
I'll go with nearly 120 point value,
Okay.
and that's Luke Weipler, center from Ohio State that went to
Yeah.
Cleveland Browns at 190.
Yeah. Another
Um,
solid offensive line pick for Cleveland.
solid offensive line, and everything I'm reading is he's going to challenge day one for the starting job, and to get a starting offensive lineman in the sixth round
Yeah,
is
you're doing something right.
right. You're doing something right, but also getting a third round rated player in the sixth round, you're really doing something right.
Yep.
And
Uh,
identical to that is Jalen Duncan, offensive tackle who went to Tennessee.
okay.
Another great value pick. He has agility and he had some scouts rating him as a first rounder during the season.
Okay.
So he was rated 99 overall. If they can build him up a little bit, develop him just a little bit more to play to his strengths, I think they got amazing value here, and it fits a need. They need offensive linemen to block for Derrick Henry. They
Yeah.
drafted Skoronski, who I'm saying is going to probably play guard. This could be their tackle.
Yeah. Yeah. All right. Well, hey, let me give you one that I liked, which was cornerback Travius Hodges Tomlinson out of TCU. And so this is the nephew of LaDainian Tomlinson. And sometimes when you get those bloodlines like that, it can be good, and then other times it can be bad. And it's just I try to put it in the right lens. And so LaDainian Tomlinson, obviously, like Hall of Fame running back, amazing. I don't want to like cross those lines too much here. Uh, Travius Hodges Tomlinson in the secondary, drafted 182 by the Rams. He was ranked at 120 by ESPN, uh, regarded as being on the smaller side. But what I like about him is that he's tough, described as being relentless. And he's like one of these guys that's fearless when it comes to run support, even though he's on the smaller side. And so you know, he's not trying to ride any coattails like like he could with LaDainian Tomlinson being his relative. He's out there knowing he's a smaller guy and he's got an uphill battle and
Hmm.
he's putting it all out on the field.
But
And I admire that, and that's
I
why I
watched
like
him
this
play
guy.
a lot this season, and he's got a lot of talent there. It didn't it on film. I'm watching him play. It looks like it will translate well, and he could also, if I remember correctly, he can also be a punt kick returner for them there.
Nice. Yeah, just more value. All right, who you got next, man?
I have a pair of receivers
Okay.
that, and hear me out on this because it's more about the value
Yeah.
here because I like Trey Palmer going to Tampa Bay at 191. I that's like 119 pick value to me. Yeah, they have Evans and Godwin, but they can't. First of all, they can't play forever.
Yeah.
He he
And all it
yeah,
takes is one of them getting hurt, and now you got an opening.
right. But he's a legitimate field stretcher that could help
Yeah, 4.33 at
free
the
them up.
combine.
Yeah.
Fast, man.
He has a lot of traits. He does have drop issues, but I think that can be coached out of him. And the other one is at 195. I like AT Perry to the Saints. It's a 100-point pick value, but
Yeah.
he has he he is the poor man's Michael Thomas,
Yeah.
and we all know Michael Thomas can't stay on the field.
Yeah.
He can come down with the 50-50 balls. He's 6'4", and with Michael Thomas off the field, the Saints haven't had that receiver that can come down with the 50-50 balls. He'll probably break the top four, and if Thomas gets hurt, he'll be a starter. And honestly, if Thomas gets hurt, I think the Saints might just move on from Thomas after
Yeah, I
seeing.
mean, they're going to have to at some point because what are the odds he's coming back now after all these years of
Mhm.
distress and injuries and whatever? But yeah, I like this pick for the Saints. He's got a sneaky good scouting report and they got good value out of it. Um, I know he's had some issues with drops, but they do say he is a great hands catcher. It's just that sometimes he drops ones that he should catch. And so
Yeah.
I liked that report on him. All right, so I got two safeties that I liked here, James. I liked J.L. Skinner out of Boise State. He went to Denver at 183, ranked at 128 by ESPN. He's described as an instinctive run defender with the ability to lower the boom, and he's also a playmaker who tracks the ball well. And so, um, this late in the draft, it seems like this guy has a lot of upside, and that Denver secondary is not as stacked as it was 2, 3 years ago. And so I like them bringing in a guy. Let's see where it goes. 6th round pick. A lot of times these guys don't even make the team, so you never know. But I like it. I think it has good potential. And then the other one was Jarek Reed II out of New Mexico. This guy wasn't even ranked on the ESPN list. And I don't even care. He was a 4-year starter at New Mexico. But the thing I really like about him is the dude had 94 tackles last year. That's a fucking shit ton for a guy that plays in the secondary, man. That's like linebacker numbers. And he's got the versatility to play cornerback or safety. Seattle, I don't know what's going on with Jamal Adams, but that injury stuff is still hanging out there from the quad that happened last year was pretty bad. I like that they're building that secondary back. They want that Legion of Boom again. And the upside for this guy is perfect. He's a 6th round pick. If it turns into something, sweet. If it doesn't, big whoop, man. He was a 6th round pick. That's all I had for 6th round, man. You got
I
anybody?
had I had a couple more for 6th round. Let me go
Throw them
back.
at me.
I've been trying to mark off the ones that. Uh, where did he go? Where the fuck did you go?
Where did you come from? Where did you go?
All right. So the next one that I liked, He was Zach Evans, running back, picked to the Rams at 215, probably a 100-point value here. I saw a lot of value.
Power runner, man.
He's a power runner, but everything I'm reading, well, first of all, he was in the 2020 recruiting class. He was the top run, and he top running back in that class. He kind of had struggled to stay on the field in college, get distracted. I mean, you're taking a flyer on a 6th-round pick that has probably more talent than any other running back on your roster. And if they can get him locked in and committed, he could be probably the steal of the draft here in the 6th round. And next guy.
So, I mean, yeah, I just want to chime in on him. So I gave him a good look, all right, and I like him as a player. I like him as a prospect. My issue was just the offense he's going into, and I like Sean McVay. I think he's very creative, gets a lot out of his guys. I'm just concerned about Stafford being the quarterback, taking everything out of shotgun. Is that going to be the right fit for him? Because a lot of times those running backs that get put into that kind of offense where everything's going out of shotgun or out of pistol or whatever, it just seems like the usage isn't there. And so I don't know. I'm hoping they figure it out because I like the potential. I'll agree with you on that, man.
And the next one, this is not a value pick. This is not. This is more sentimentality.
Okay.
Then it's Deuce Vaughn, who's picked 212 to the Cowboys.
Yeah.
And the reason why I like this pick is because, first of all, have you seen the film of his father calling him?
No,
and
but
kind of messing with him a little bit.
I heard. Okay, yeah, no, tell me about it. Tell me about it.
So his father called him from like the Cowboys phone, and said, hey son, and like first thing Deuce said was something along the lines of why aren't you calling me from your phone? It's like, oh,
Yeah.
I can't find it, or something like that. And he's like, no, just kidding. You want to come to work with me tomorrow? He's like, his son's like, what are you talking about? It's like, no, seriously, we're picking you. You're coming to work with me tomorrow, or something like that. It's just the fact that, like, just first of all, Dallas needed a running back, and it's not quite value pick, but it's a 6th-rounder, and just kind of like the story behind it, where like it's probably like if your son has enough talent to be in the NFL, wouldn't it be your dream to call him to tell him he was being picked by whatever team?
Yeah, yeah.
I mean, it's just the whole sentiment, and he has a real chance to play there too, which is crazy.
Yeah, I mean, man. So I was just trying to look up the guy. Frick, I can't remember his name. Who was that running back that was on the Jets on Hard Knocks? I think it was 2 years in a row. He was like their camp like all-star, and then they didn't even put him on the roster, and the Patriots ended up plucking him. He ended up being like, really good for the Patriots. And then I think he even played with the Chargers for a little while. You know who I'm talking about? I'm drawing a blank on his name, man. I remember what he looks like. Small little guy. And small little guy, like I should talk, I should not. But I'm just saying that, uh, when I think of Deuce Vaughn, this guy's listed at 5'5", 179 pounds. It reminds me of that running back. And, like a lot of people would say, oh, it's just because of the connection with his dad and this and that he got drafted. But I would say you never know, man, because like reading his scouting report, his size makes it difficult for defenders to track him. And it just, these guys can be sneaky good. And shit, I'm trying to find his name. How could I not remember his name? Ah. All right. Let's see.
Which Jets Hard Knocks was it?
Yeah, that's what I'm struggling with. Give me something. I mean, I remember Rex Ryan, and they were just gushing over this guy, and he had like great tape and everything, and then they didn't even freaking keep him on the team. It was just like, what are you doing? All right, let's see, come on, let's hear.
Okay, so
This
2010.
article's not loading. No. Uh,
Oh, this is gonna bug me. I know who you're talking about too,
yeah,
because I.
Woodhead, Danny Woodhead. Holy cow! I
How
couldn't
did we
find it
forget
in the
about
article,
Danny
but I just
Woodhead?
remembered it. What's that?
How could you forget about Danny Woodhead? How did we?
That's what I'm saying, man. How can we forget about it? The dude had a great career, man.
Yeah. No, I
But
know. I remembered. I remembered exactly what you're talking about, but
yeah, but he was one of those guys where like he was like I don't know if you remember this. They had him in the room with Wes Welker and I don't know who was the other guy. Maybe it was Danny Edelman or whatever. And they were all side by side, and they were all listed at like 5'8" on the roster. And Woodhead was like clearly like a couple inches shorter than any of them. And like Welker was even saying like he wasn't even 5'8", even though they had him listed that high. And so it was like everybody speculated that Woodhead was really like 5'5" or 5'6". And so that's all I was getting at, where I feel like it's a good comparison in some regard to Deuce Vaughn. Whether they're going to be that same kind of player on the field, I don't really know. But Vaughn, he's a threat after the catch. Woodhead was a very good receiver out of the backfield. I just see similarities. That's all I was getting at, man.
I think that was my last six rounder. Let me double check. Like I had looking, I had others that I considered, but
Okay.
I think that was it.
All
We
right,
can
well,
go,
let's
we
get
can.
to the seventh round, man. Let's get to the seventh round. And there were a couple really good ones here. And so, do you want to kick this one off? I got a handful on my list. You know, I don't
I
want to
will kick
steal your
this one.
thunder. I feel bad I started off that way.
I will kick this one off, and I will go back to Pittsburgh.
Okay.
Another fucking value pick by Pittsburgh. Probably 150, 160 pick value.
Okay.
At 241, they drafted Corey Trice,
Oh,
cornerback.
yeah. Yeah.
He had on everyone's board. He had a third round grade because of his size and his style of play. In this draft, Pittsburgh drafted the future of their cornerback position
Yep.
with Joey Porter Jr. and Trice. And both of them, I think, have a seventh rounder here. I think has a shot to start and be the full time starting corner back for Pittsburgh, and it's probably another one of the biggest steals of the draft. I mean, obviously value wise it is, but
Yeah.
it should translate well.
Yeah. And
And to get a
Pittsburgh.
starter in the seventh round is crazy.
Oh, yeah. And Pittsburgh has been really good at developing cornerbacks. And so I wouldn't put it past them to find a way to get this guy on the field earlier than later. All right, so here's one that I like, James, and it was a pick by the New York Jets, tight end Zach Kuntz. He was picked at 220 by the Jets, ranked 138 by ESPN. Physical freak, man, 6'8", lit up the combine. He was the best tight end for the vertical jump, the broad jump, and the three-cone drill. His production in college was dicey, a number of reasons for that. He started off at Penn State, kind of buried on that depth chart, transferred to Old Dominion, then he got hurt, and that's kind of like the end of the story until the combine where he got back on the map. And I think he's landing in a perfect spot because he's going to go in there. He'll be behind CJ Uzoma and Tyler Conklin, which will give him plenty of time to develop, get his legs back under him, and get the game going. But I mean, the physical gifts are there, man. And so if he can like learn some of the intricacies of the game, he could be a pretty sweet tight end down the line, man. I love it when you're throwing darts at high ceiling guys like that in the seventh round. There's no reason not to.
Yeah, and that's where I went next with Andrew Voorhees
Oh
at
yeah,
229. Voorhees probably before he tore his ACL was probably a
yeah,
top
lineman.
100 rating, top 100 overall. And I mean, even with a torn ACL, I saw him rated as high as in the one teens. Um, so well, I'm sorry, Baltimore knows what they're getting out of him this year. It's just kind of like a redshirt year for him.
Yep.
But they're throwing a dart at a very talented guard that potentially could be a starter 2 years from now.
Yeah, and that's what I was reading is that he might start 2024, like
Hmm.
right out of the gate 2024. And so, okay, you got to give him 1 year off, but if you got a guy in the seventh round who's going to be a freaking starter for you the year after, and realistically, he's on a 4 year contract, so you're going to get 3 years of a starting offensive lineman for a late seventh round pick. I mean,
Hmm.
that's just amazing for Baltimore to take that chance. I love it when teams do that. It's not it's not a reach. It's not a wasted pick. It's um, it's a great risk to take. So all right, so let me give you one. This is near and dear to my heart here, James. Running back Lou Nichols III out of Central Michigan. I got to call him out. He was the lone Chippewa to get drafted this year. He ends up going to the Packers, of all places, at 235 overall. Bigger running back, patient guy. Um, the thing that I liked that when I read about him is that if you go back to 2021, and so that was the year where you had Bernard Raymond and Dallas, not Dallas Goddard. What was the other offensive lineman? I'm drawing a blank on his name. The dude that went to Tampa Bay. They,
Wirfs?
I'm sorry, what was that?
No, the first person that I thought of when you said dude who went to Tampa Bay was Wirfs, but it's
Oh no, no, yeah, the central guy. But no,
yeah, I know.
either way, they had more talent at Central in 2021, and Uh, Nichols led the FBS in rushing yards per game that year, and so I think it's a seventh round pick. He's obviously going to be going in behind Aaron Jones and AJ Dillon. He may not make the roster. I really have no idea, but he's a Chippewa. I had to call him out. I'm hoping the best for him.
Let me see if I can find. No, but that's not going to give.
And here, while you're looking, I'll give you another guy. This one, man, I have no idea about this guy, but it's offensive tackle Jake Witt out of freaking Northern Michigan, James. I have never known a guy to go pro out of Northern Michigan, and so I wanted to just call this one out there. He's a former tight end and basketball player, regarded as having a really high ceiling. That's the kind of thing that you want from a seventh round pick. Maybe he's raw, maybe he's a small school guy, but if he's got that high ceiling, it gives you something to work with and try and get him there. He's 6'7", although a little bit shorter arms. I don't know if that translates to him going into guard because 6'7" is pretty tall for a guard, but Indy drafted him at 236. Just another one where I think it's worth rolling the dice this late in the draft, man.
I'm trying to find your son, the guy you're thinking of, and it's going to
Oh,
bug me till I find him.
yeah, I'll find him real quick. Um, Luke Gadecki.
Gadecki,
Yeah.
yeah.
Yeah, man, I thought he was going to be better last year, and it didn't happen. And now you look at they drafted Mauk or Mouch, however you say his name. It looks like it's Gadecki's going to be destined to be a backup for a while, but that's okay. He's just got to work his way up, and he did play right tackle at Central, so I mean, them bumping into guard wasn't necessarily a natural move for him, but it just seems like long term that's where he's going to fit best in the NFL. So hopefully it takes, and he gets there.
So I'm going to steal a pick that I'm sure is on your list, and I'm
Okay.
doing it on purpose. And I'm sure it's on your list because this position is near and dear to your heart.
All right. I think I know where you're going.
It's not necessarily a value pick
Yeah, yeah.
because it's probably, but it's the value is right around where they picked him, and it's Braden Willis, fullback
Oh yeah,
from Oklahoma, drafted by the 49ers. First of all, few teams in the NFL use the fullback.
yeah.
San Francisco happens to be
Like the
one of
best
them
in the world
and the
with it.
best in the
Yeah.
world at it. Ushak is turning 32,
Yep.
and I think they're starting the contingency planning for Ushak moving on and not be, his diminishing returns, and they have Braden Willis who can play the role that Ushak plays. He's good at pass. He's a good pass catcher, short yard running, run blocker, which is all the three traits you need in a fullback. And he happens to go to the team that uses the fullback the best.
Yeah. All right. So no, you threw me off with it because so ESPN has him ranked or listed as a tight end. I thought you were going fullback. Where's he at? I thought you were going with Derek Parrish out of Houston. He went to Jacksonville, but no, that's interesting. All right, so I'm pulling up the report on Braden Willis, 6'4", 241 out of Oklahoma. Um, yeah, I mean, hey, they used him in the slot, in the backfield, out wide. I mean, he could replace Juice in some ways if he's got that kind of versatility, man. Give him some time to work it out. But yeah, I mean, hey, I looked at the best available before the draft, and I think they had two fullbacks that were on the list, and I thought, okay, I'll take it. Better than zero, because some years it's been zero. All right, let me give you my last guy, James. My last pick for the seventh round was defensive end Moro Ojomo out of Texas, and I'm sure I'm saying all these names wrong, but this was another great pick by Philly. They started off the draft really well, and I think they finished it really well. This guy's 6'3", 292 pounds, defensive end with versatility, can play anywhere along the defensive line, uh, has the strength to set the edge, and very effective long arm move. Ranked 119 by ESPN. Philly got him at 249. Love the pick.
Huh. Why do I have him? It's just throwing me that ESPN had Willis as
Based on
tight end.
his description, I can see him being a fullback. Says he lines up at H-back in the slot, in the backfield, out wide, and at Wildcat quarterback. So yeah, I mean, I could see him, and the size is right, 6'4", 241. I mean, that's kind of tall for a fullback, but that's fullback weight, man.
Yeah, it just kind of threw me. So I was trying to figure that out real quick because like I had him as a fullback, and then I went to like a couple. Maybe that's how they
They might have, because there've been a
announced.
lot of guys, especially this year in the draft, that had position flexibility, and so they were listed one way on one site, listed a totally different way on another site, and you just kind of had to like read through it all to figure out, oh yeah, this guy does a little bit of both, or yeah, I know what you mean.
So, anyways, I had one more seventh rounder.
Okay, let's hear it.
No, I think you hit him. Was
Uh-oh, you're getting choppy on me. What'd you say?
uh, Was Jalen Jones on your list?
He was not. No.
Okay. For some reason, like I read it and I was like, wait a minute, I think he said him. But
Nope.
so this is
Nope.
like a cornerback, Jalen Jones. He went 221 overall to Indianapolis, probably a 40-point value, 40 pick value here, but he has some traits that could translate well to the NFL and could be a difference maker in man coverage
Okay.
for them, but if down the line, but he'll be an immediate specialist. So I just, you're not looking for your next starting cornerback, although I think
Yeah.
Pittsburgh did get it around. But you're looking for a guy that's going to contribute to the team, special teams, return game, stuff like that, and has the potential to see the field and play well in times. And cornerback is one of those premium positions, so to speak,
Yep.
where you need to get these guys before they're on like their second, third contract when they're making gobs of money.
Oh, definitely. Yeah, definitely. Hey, I like it. Anything's worth the risk this late. Uh-oh. You there?
I'm here.
Oh, okay. All right. You're back. It gave me the boop 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 like I lost you there for a minute.
Oh, it did?
Uh-oh. You're fading
Oh,
on me again. We had this happen, I don't know, last week or the week before. Oh no, I see your mouth moving, but I can't hear you.
I'm good. That was my last one.
Oh, gotcha. Okay, now I got you. We're back. Okay. Little technical difficulties, you know. It's must be all that sunshine out there on the West Coast.
Yeah, probably.
All right. Well, yeah. Hey, that was cool going through it. Let's take it over. Let's do our question of the week. And so this one I sent you earlier today just to try and give you a little bit of heads up on it. But basically, for question of the week, I wanted to talk about Central Michigan. And so we only had the one guy get drafted in Lou Nichols III. But if you look at the ESPN best available, there's two guys right there, and one of them I was shocked didn't get drafted. And so, really you're looking at like three guys that are like in play to potentially make a team this year, but all very late, very outside chances. And so my question of the week is just, do you think any of these guys are going to latch on a roster, or is Central just going to strike out this year in terms of guys landing on a team? And while you're thinking about it, I'll give you my answer, which I think is yes. I don't think Lou Nichols III is going to be the guy, even though he got drafted. I think defensive end Thomas Incoom is going to be the guy. He's 6'2", 262 pounds. All right, we're back after some technical difficulty, talking about these Central Michigan guys, hoping one of them latches onto a roster. But yeah, that's the question, man. Do you think any of these three guys has a shot? If so, who is it and why? Or are we just going to go 0-4 this year and hope next year's better?
So I heard your reasoning for Incoom. I don't think it's Incoom. I don't think it's
The tight end?
I don't think it's the guy that's drafted. I just drew a
Oh,
blank.
Nichols?
Nichols. I don't think it's Nichols. I think it's Joel Wilson
Okay.
because Joel Wilson, he's a talented tight end that could see for even if it's coming in for special teams to be a backup or a third
That's
string
true.
tight end.
Yeah. Get on the
He
punt
could
squad or something. Yeah.
right. He can snatch the ball out of the air. I mean he had from what his highlight film, I saw quite a few one-handers in college. He's a little bit short and light, or he has a little bit short arms and he's a little light, but I think he's from what I'm reading, he shows the ability to seal defenders. and he shoots his hands, latches on, and plays with good balance from his
Okay.
scouting report. And I think that he has the traits for a special teamer that could see some action at tight end. The thing I didn't like about Nkum was it's a lot of like everything for him. It's upside. He has the upside. He has the upside, but
Yeah.
it's not. You have to show it more
Oh,
to
I
latch on,
agree.
especially in the interior linebacker outside linebacker position. You have to show it more because that's you're setting the tone at that on the edge. And
Yeah.
with Nichols, I just from everything I read, I'm not that impressed by Nichols, and I was kind of surprised he was drafted.
Well, don't be saying that, James. But all right, you're being honest. I got you. And hey, either way, we're going to keep our fingers crossed. Hopefully, one of these guys gets in, boosts those numbers up a little bit. And hey, if not, there's always next year. So, all right. Well, hey, that's our question of the week. Anybody who's out there, hey, hit us up. Do name that stadium. Play question of the week. Shoot us some random comments. I don't care. Ask us questions. Tell us you want us to cover something. We'll do a topic specially for you. All you got to do is tell us. And so, yeah, that's all I got for tonight, James. Anything, any closing thoughts?
No, I don't think so.
All righty. All righty. Well, hey, thanks for watching, everyone. If you liked it, hit that subscribe button if you haven't already. Definitely hit that thumbs up and check us out again next week. James, I'll catch you later, man.
All right, sounds good. Have a good one.
See ya.
Gridiron Grinder. Hut hut hike.